Welcome to my van life perspective. My name is Tasha, aka Miss Cuff. I'm a solo female van lifer living in a micro camper for actually coming up to a year now. Can you believe that? And today's show is episode 4. We've got a special guest, Mevi.
Hey, how you doing, Tasha?
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for... Yeah, this is going to be an extra special podcast because we've got like...
All the cameras.
All the cameras. I've got BTS camera. I've got like 1, 2, 3 cameras. We just needed to nerd out and I'm super excited for that. I'm all about nerding out, right?
Yeah, I brought the tech.
So, this episode is going to be very conversational. As you know, this is my van life perspective, but I thought it'd be nice to get different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what I did there?
Yeah. Oh, very good. Very good.
Literally. So, yeah, we've got 3 topics that we want to discuss. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this with Mevi is because I feel like we have similar journey
Very
vibes.
Similar. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap in our lives, I feel.
Yeah, so basically, for those of you who are listening for the first time, this is my Van Life Perspective podcast is an add-on to my YouTube channel, which is Miss Kiff, MISSKIFF. And if those of you don't know either, Mevi had his own podcast, which actually recently is being booted on YouTube to make more videos. Otherwise, he's going to get kicked off.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So, pretty cool.
Strongly worded email from YouTube partner program.
Yeah. Quick disclaimer before we start. If you hear any external sounds, we are outside in the countryside. There's a little bit of a breeze coming. We've done as much as we could with the audio and the visuals. But if you do hear a bird here, a truck there, a scream maybe, just joking.
Where have you brought me?
No. Okay, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. Okay, my name's Mevi. That's not my real name. That's a name that I've adopted, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. I used to paint on walls as a teenager, my formative years. 4 letters were easier to paint on a wall and you don't want to paint your real name on the wall because you get knocked from the cops. So anyway, that's so Mevi, M-E-V-I. I am a full-time van lifer. I support myself by doing video editing and
Don't do that.
I have a tendency to fidget. I'm a real fidgeter and I'm under strict orders to sit perfectly still. So I shall be.
He's playing tutti-frutti with his feet.
Yeah, have you not seen? I'm gripping my shins. I'm fidgeting with my feet now, but I've been told off. So yeah, I support myself by editing videos. I work for Darren of the Urban Motorhome YouTube channel, and I have been for about a year now, 50-something videos in, and loving it.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing van life now?
Van life. I bought my van in August of 2017. Spent maybe 7 months building it. And I vlogged that on YouTube. I had an idea that I would be doing instructional videos on YouTube, but I realised I'm not very good at instructing people when I don't really know what I'm doing myself. So I lent more into the story. My thoughts, my motivations for living in a van. I cared for my father in his last months. He had dementia, and everything about him sort of faded away. What was left behind were his strongest memories, and when he passed, it kind of stuck with me that I didn't really have those kind of memories. I needed to live a life with a bit more, with more opportunity for me to make memories, lasting memories. Because I'd I had a good life, but a kind of unremarkable life.
Okay. So that kind of leads us into the first topic of the show, and that is dealing with grief and living in a van.
Yeah.
Similar but different. Because obviously the way people die is another way. Like, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But like we all suffer grief in different ways. And for me, I think that was my biggest motive to go into the van.
Yeah.
Like mine was a bit more hectic. Like I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, mine was more, I have no choice to move into a van, otherwise I'm going to be homeless.
Yeah.
And literally, so my mother passed away last year on the 31st of May, and then went to South Africa to bury her on the 11th of June, and then came back that I don't even know what day of the week it was, to be honest. I don't know, that week in between the 11th and the 17th. And I bought a van. I found a van. So the weekend of my mum's actual, like her birthday, the 29th, I remember, I went to London to see a van. And the van, this guy was super dodgy, so it wasn't going to work out anyway. I travelled all the way from Wales to go to London. But the first one was going to be like a Ford Transit, but the super small one. Thank God I didn't get that, because, oh my gosh, that would have been a disaster.
Transit Connect.
Transit, yeah.
Oh my word, that is
How
tiny.
the hell? I can hardly like put all my stuff now, let alone
living in a tiny box.
literally.
Really small.
So yeah, so that was kind of interesting. So yeah, the person I landed up actually buying the van from was living 15 minutes away from me in Wales. So it was like this weird element. And during that week of me coming back, I think, well, when I found out the news of my mum passing on the 31st of May, and then there was this weird 3 weeks of living. Like, I don't know, it was a bit like eerie. I was... At the time, I was smoking weed because I couldn't really deal with life. It's either that or I would have gone insane. And I feel like that period of time I was just like, I can't smile. I don't know what the point is of living. I can't even believe this is happening right now. And then that kind of, I realized, I was like, right, I should just find this van. Because I had to find a place to move out on the 25th of June. I had to be out my place in Treforest. So then this van on Facebook Marketplace, and you hear all the horror stories of not buying on Facebook Marketplace and all these things. But actually, it was really, really cool. We'll talk about, I talk about that in another episode about how, well, I actually did on episode 1, how I bought my van.
Yeah.
I was in like fight or flight mode as soon as I bought my van and moved into it. And literally that time period, I didn't want to see people. I was just like, work, build the van, that's it. I don't think I ever dealt with grieving being in the van. I think the only thing that did come up is a lot of nightmares, like a lot of nightmares being in the city. But that was like, I don't know, what was your experience about like kind of that raw time?
I actually, well, after my father died, and then I was a caretaker in the house. So, and it was during that time that I was building the van. So it was different. I do have challenges with my mental health, particularly at the time. I was not long out of a toxic relationship of 8 years. I cared for my dad, personal care. Don't get me wrong, I'd do it 1,000 times over, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done, caring for my dad. But I took comfort in that I'd done what I could.
Yeah, so how long was like, you said you were caretaking for your father whilst building the van?
Yes. About 7 months. So I think it was Easter when I first moved into the van. The house had maybe about another week
2017?
2018.
2018, yeah.
Easter 2018. I broke down about half a mile down the road, the van electrics. I'd had an engine warning light on, and so the first week of van life, I lived partially between the house, just so I had somewhere to stay, and also plug in and edit videos, although I did do that on the garage forecourt. They're very, very kind. Yeah, this is my home. I live in this van. I'm moving out of the house, which is about to complete, and he gave me the key to the unit. He gave me the key to the gate of the estate, and he said, "I'm not having you pooping in a van in a bucket." He looked after me, and it was my first experience really of someone that I don't know just being genuinely decent. So we're coming back to the grief. My mother died about 8 years before of a brain tumour, which I didn't cope with very well. And I had counselling for that. My father, because I felt I'd done as much as I could, and I don't think there was much more that I could have done for him. I grieved very healthily.
Would you say you're over grieving your mum's passing now, or?
I miss my parents. My parents were, fantastic people, and they gave me the best upbringing that they were able to, given the financial hardships that we had as a family. But I miss being able to talk to my mum. My dad was profoundly deaf, so yeah, we didn't have the greatest of conversations, my father and I. But my mum was always a great sounding board for me. And there's been times in the last 5 years, certainly of van life, yeah, I miss her dearly.
Would you say you grieved during the your van life?
When I started van life, I thought it would be not an escape from issues I've had with my mental health, but I thought it would be a great distraction. I just sitting in the back of the van, instead of escaping my demons, they were just sitting in the passenger seat with me. All my baggage, or a lifetime of baggage, grief of losing my parents, were all there.
And how did you cope with that? How was that experience like?
I've had some really dark times. Some of my bleakest moments have been in the back of the van. You know, I've had great friends that I can talk to. But for me, I just ride it out. I know it's coming. I can prepare for it, put time aside for it. Maybe let people know I'm going to be a little out of contact, and I just ride it out.
So obviously we all deal with it in different ways, and we've all experienced different things. So yours is more like, moments of waves. It's kind of like how I deal with depression, to be honest. But so my mum chose the worst time to pass away, to be honest. And also, my mum was really young. She was only 56. I was finishing my dissertation, doing the van build, plus doing this new job. And I could tell you the level of stress. So for me, if I'm in emotional situation, I dive into work. I work, and work. And for me, I think for me with the van build, what started to get frustrating is, and I soon realized that I was in over my head. I had no skill building out a van, that I have no idea what I'm doing. I've watched 10,000 van builds and I still think they are complicated unless someone doesn't physically show you. It's weird about grief because as soon as someone goes through something, you almost attract those people in your life. And there's two things that was really, really profound for me was my friends in general. I've DJed over the years. People from the Netherlands were sending me money, and yeah, it was just amazing. Just to get on with my van build, because I was waiting a 4-week period to get paid. So God bless them big time, because they helped me build my bed. I could actually sleep on my freaking bed and not on the floor.
Yeah.
What really triggered me, which I felt, was my dissertation and not receiving my diesel heater. I was there's actually a video that says not receiving my diesel heater triggered my grief. And I just sat there going, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can actually carry on anymore. I felt like at some point I'm gonna just explode. And I feel like that mental stress for me was the worst, is that I wasn't dealing with it. I kept on crying for no reason. And I had to like keep myself together because I was in a co-working space, working on my business, working as a digital architect, doing this, doing that. I just had to be the perfect person in life. And I felt like I had to just shove everything under the carpet because I had no time to grieve because I had to deal with everyday life. And for me, there's a bit more context because prior to that, 2 years ago with COVID, I lost everything. So I was building my life back up and I was just like, I just felt like I was already coming out of some deep mental illness that was a reoccurrence to me. So in 2020, I was going to commit suicide. And I went through 12 weeks of therapy. I had to wait 15 weeks on the wait list. Went through 12 weeks of therapy. And as soon as I got to South Africa, my mother had a heart attack. And then that kind of all went, what the hell? When I came back to the UK, I was in the worst financial position ever. So it's not just about grief, and we're going to go into mental illness kind of now, is that it's like, how do you deal with grief? Plus, you've already got a backlog of mental illness, like depression. And so I was triggered in 2021 with my depression. I got to like really find spoken word poetry with that. But then the next thing was in 2022, I called the Samaritans one day. I was there again. And I just spoke to them. And that was like maybe 2 months before my mum passed away. So I was fragile. And I tell you now, the reason why, so my biggest coping mechanism is CBD oil or weed. It's really good for me. It just like really de-stresses me. So my mind goes very like just relaxed. And that's what's good because stress is such a killer as it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I've got depression. I was diagnosed in 2020, but I've been living with it for 6 years at least. And I didn't realize. And that's how 2020 happened because I didn't know it was there.
Creeps up, doesn't it?
It does. So what would you say your experience with mental illness is, and how have you really coped being in the van? I'll talk about how I've coped in a second, but
Yeah, of course. I was first offered antidepressants by a doctor when I was 18, 19, maybe 20. And I declined them at the time. In fact, I got up from my chair at the doctor's surgery and I walked out. But that was the first time. I worked in IT, very long days, out on the road, driving up and down the country. Although I did find my love of the open road, the hours and the stress, I had a burnout, and I had counselling then. That was around 1999, 2000. And it's been pretty much a real feature of my life ever since. I eventually left that job. I temped for a little while. I then started working in I worked for the Essex Probation Service, so criminal justice. After that, I worked for an alcohol project. I was in a relationship with a narcissistic sociopath. We talk about things creeping up. It very much did. And I discovered that I was in a relationship with someone that didn't really exist. It was just a figment of their imagination. Everything kind of fell apart. I lost my job. I made a few disclosures to visiting crisis team, and they just medicated me to the eyeballs. And it took me about a year of therapy to leave that relationship. And then I went back. I went back to her. And I kept leaving, kept going back. Eventually I did leave. And it was around that time that I moved in with my father.
What you went through has an element of PTSD that comes back later on, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say, okay, a few questions. Do you fear going back to that place? And then also, how do you prevent yourself now from not going there.
I don't think I'm alone amongst the van life community. I think there's a lot of people finding themselves attracted to van life because of their life traumas, as a way of escaping or as a way of resetting. Yeah, I fell on my feet. I think my YouTube channel helped. It gave me some exposure. I got a lot of great support from people watching the channel, and I never really expected that. I didn't start my channel with any expectation of becoming known, being notorious, being famous or infamous. But I've made some fantastic friends, and I think that's. I think if you're in van life and you're doing it very solitary, I think personally I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without people checking in on me and me checking in on other people as well. It's kind of attractive going back to nature, or being a nomad, being a drifter, having no real ties. It's attractive, but for me, it's not sustainable without social interaction, without people.
And that's kind of like, so my coping mechanism, I'm an isolator. I'm one of those hermits. I love just going into, sorting out my mindset, but sorting it out in nature. So how I stay grounded is through nature, and vitamin D, the sun. But you're right, because actually when I got here, just before I got to this campsite, I'm actually working on a campsite right now. I had loads of troubles, and I was in a dark place-ish. And funny enough, you were the one that checked in. And I think when I came here, it was great. It was like, okay, cool, I'm isolated. I'm in whatever I've wanted. Great. But loneliness does creep in. It does creep in regardless of whatever you want to say. And I feel like that's what I love about also YouTube is people do watch you. people do admire. And even I was at a festival this weekend and people were like, oh, I love what you're doing. It's such an inspiration. Da, 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 da. And I was like, wow, okay, that's cool. Because for me, it's just me living my life and doing what I'm doing. But another way for me to really cope with my illness in this way is I love meditation. I love yoga. This is why I love the big outdoors. But also I found myself, if I'm going into a deep, deep dark hole, I will not touch alcohol. Alcohol is for me like party time. I'm happy. I'm cool. I'm very grounded. If you ever see me drink, I'm in a good place in my life, because previously I used to use alcohol as an escapism. And that's something that I realized after my mum passed away. I stopped drinking alcohol for 4 months. And I just did yoga, meditation, and had obviously a smoke every now and again just to de-stress me more than anything. But that's kind of my coping mechanism. And every time so my life as well has been very much city-based. So this is the first time I've been really out in nature. I haven't been like roaming as much as you have over the last 5 years. I've been really fixed.
But you worked. You had a job.
I had a job. We'll talk about the job in a second. But that's kind of the vibe, is that I was fixed in the city, always escaping the city. And that's what I loved about being in the van. It was just like really, really incredible. So my only other thing is, if you don't want to talk to a friend, you could always call the Samaritans.
Absolutely, yeah.
For me, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or anything, but this is what I did for myself. Is I self-referred myself. If you're in England, you can self-refer yourself to psychological well-being practitioner. You've got a choice of either mindfulness, where you learn techniques on how to deal with what you're doing, which actually is really good, because once you know your triggers and once you know your thought patterns, it's really good to understand that about yourself. And depression never goes away. It's continuous. You just learn how to deal with it better. And I speak a lot about depression on my channel, because I for so many years it's been such a like a taboo subject. You can't talk about it. It's your weak or your this, you know. And for me, you have to talk about it, especially in this day and age. And then also, you can go either to a therapist, like they will refer you to a therapist. And I personally, because I knew I had a lot of trauma from South Africa that I needed to work through, I'm so glad I went through a therapist because I got to have that safe space. And then when I was at uni, I also referred myself into the mental well-being group. And that was a really good, it's just good to have support. And I think that's the thing is we're all going through our own van life journey, a life journey really, because just because you live in a van doesn't mean you're not living, right?
Yeah.
You're still living life. And also the support van life, I think, what's it?
Support van lifers.
Yeah. So that's Liam's group.
Yeah.
That group is also very
on
much
Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook. It's really, really good. I just feel like personally, not all van life Facebook groups are like legit, because I've posted a few times and people have actually triggered me where I've just been like, no, this is not the support van lifers. This is like another group. Most, like, generally speaking now, people are really helpful, but yeah, obviously you've got professionals out there, help it, but also change things up. Try it all.
Yeah.
See what works.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got an actual question
Ooh.
from Adventurous Mandy.
Right, so question for Mevi. When you decided to go from being employed to being self-employed, what was your biggest fear, and have you had to overcome it? And if you have, how did you do it?
Ooh.
I'm going to answer that too.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you, man.
Mandy. You're a legend.
Yeah.
We haven't met, but you're a legend already.
It was actually a really easy decision to make. The reality was very different. I was very sure that I wanted to... I worked for a charity. I worked for a charity called Cat Zero. The last 2 years, supporting people through lockdown, COVID, all of that stuff was very difficult, very triggering, and emotionally exhausting. It's secondhand trauma. I started at Cat Zero knowing that I was the right person for the job. I left Cat Zero knowing that I was no longer the right person for the job. They needed someone with a bit more resilience. So resigning from Cat Zero was very easy. I knew that I was going to be doing video editing. I've been editing for maybe about 20 years as a hobby, and my previous time doing music, I'd point a camera at people, edit those into something. On YouTube, I really developed my skills as a video editor, so I was confident that I was going to be okay. In reality, I don't really like editing other people's stuff. As it is, I already knew Darren of the Urban Motorhome. I'd known him since 2019. He was customer number one.
Yeah.
But we don't make a huge amount of money. I'm below the breadline. I'm on less than minimum wage. It's a long way down from a well-paid, funded charity.
But
that was the hard thing. It's a long way down financially. That said, it's best move I ever made.
Yeah.
I have no regrets.
yeah. Because as well, it's like that exponential thing is you're investing in it. I knew from the first time I was self-employed was 2015 I was self-employed, and basically I was just like, hell no, can I work for a corporation? And I feel like that sense of freedom and choosing your own time is more valuable than wasting my life. Through COVID, when I first lost my job, I decided that I was going to try to hustle money for myself. And I think I've been kind of navigating my way through trying to get to self-employment because I've already experienced it before. I was trying to get there again, but with me going back into a city, not really understanding what my career is doing, like really I lost myself doing whatever I needed in a career. Then my master's, and that kind of filled in the gap to what I needed to do. And then I was like, right, I'm going to start my own business and marketing consultancy.
Yeah.
So after dissertation life, in October, I went straight into how can I build into myself and make money now. So my first paid client actually came in at about £750, which is amazing. So when I started to realize, okay, wait, minimum, like if I was going to work as a digital marketing executive, my hourly rate was going to be £14.50, if that, because of the demographic I was living at. And I was like, hell no. So in my consultancy, I've stepped up to like at least £50 an hour now. And I feel like it's that perspective. It's like my whole money aspect has changed and I value myself more. And I've moved into a van so that I can save money and like stop wasting your money on rent. So I was never fearful. I was just more scared because remember my trigger point is financial stress. So I was triggered by that stress of, oh crap, what's going to happen if I don't get that client next month?
Yeah.
You know, what am I going to do?
Or they pay you late.
Or these people. Do you know what I mean? I guess that's self-employment. But what's really, really important here is that we live in the UK and there's a contingency for self-employment. So the government actually do a universal credit for self-employment, which I only recently went through. But I think I'll do another episode on that. And let me know if you want to hear more about that. But briefly, I signed up into Universal Credit where they give you like a year of like a startup buffer. So if you get paid late by a client, then you can still get paid like a minimum to cover your expenses.
Right.
And living in a van, what's amazing about living in a van, your expenses isn't high.
Yes.
So you can still at least pay to run and live in your van. Like we can eat freaking 2-minute noodles forever. Do you know what I mean? But it's that investment of, if I don't do this now, coming back to the whole grief situation of this is why I'm here, to experience life and to really live life to your fullest. For me, it's not appealing to go into full-time employment, slave trading myself, to be depressed for my mansion I'm going to be building because that's the hustle bustle, the stress of the society of how it is. I'd rather take the unconventional route, work my ass off, but I'm putting that investment into myself and I'm creating experiences. And we would never have met if I did not do that either.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I feel like it is difficult, but it's also really rewarding. So there is no fear. There's just about,
You take
Let's
full credit for your successes.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've got another question.
Oh.
All right, Mevi, mate. Right, my question to you is, given that you've been living in the van life scene for such a long time, if you were to click your fingers tomorrow and you had all the money you need and all the resources you need, would you still be in van life? And if you were, what would you do now you've been given them resources? Or would you move away from that and go do something else? Be it, I don't know what it would be. What would it be? And yeah, how would that look? How would that change? What would that be?
That's Darren.
That's Darren.
That's my boss.
Yeah, I just thought that would be perfect segment link.
Oh, that's a great segue from what we've been talking about. If I had the money, the resources, would I still do van life? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is my life now. This is my normal.
What else would you do with the money though? Because that's what he's asked.
Live like a king.
In what way?
Maybe I'd have a better vehicle. if I could afford a better vehicle.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think I...
Yeah, I think that's the first investment, bro. If you're not buying a new van for yourself, I'm buying one for you. That's for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll
if I had all the money in the world, I'd be like, maybe right.
Yeah, get rid of that piece of... Yeah. This is my normal. I've dabbled with house life. 2019 was bad, but that's really because I needed two new engines in 2019, and I just started renting. I had the means to. I had a proper job, well paid. But, I've dabbled with house life since moving into the van. And the van just calls to me. The lifestyle calls to me. So absolutely, no doubt, 100%, I will continue doing this until something else comes into my life, whether that be cabin in the woods, maybe.
But this is what I mean. You've got all the money in the world.
Yeah.
You haven't really answered the question, bro. Because I'm already saying, bro, I'll answer this question for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you had all the money in the world,
Yeah.
100% you'd do van life. But what
Yeah.
about, what else do you want for yourself?
The money brings you opportunities that you don't have to say no.
Is there another camera you'd buy? Is there like a new editing software? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I don't actually want a lot.
yeah, I can tell. I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, give the money to me.
I've spent 5 years getting rid of everything.
Yeah.
To the point where, I talked about baggage. That's all I've got left. I don't have. I've learned that it's okay to struggle. I like the struggle.
I don't like it that much. I like it for like 2 years and then I'm okay with a day. I've struggled enough for 3 years.
Okay, let's change that word. I like the challenge. You don't like the either? What do you think?
No, because I've loved what I've done so far. Don't get me wrong. I would personally invest the money into... It would be rewarding to be able to drive where I want, how I wanted to, and have not have that stress of, okay, cool, I'm going to take my van down to France for the weekend or for the next month and go, doesn't matter anyway, whatever happens with the van, I've got a contingency to invest in like an Airbnb whilst I'm there. And sometimes I can be like in the van, sometimes I can go do an experience like Travel Beans does, which is pretty cool. I don't mind struggling to a certain point, but like for me, I want to be somewhere where I am comfortable enough to have more choices, because I feel like I personally have lived a life where I've been so restricted because I didn't understand my worth with money and how to kind of use money to your advantage and kind of whatever. I would still be in a van, 100%. High top though. This micro camper is already doing my head in.
It's doing my back in.
Literally. But I would want to buy property in multiple places. It's all about buying land and building a tiny home and then building little tiny homes, but by like building mini like holiday things, so that the place can be used, the property can be used as
Airbnb type things,
like Airbnb things, retreats things, van lifer things. If I wanted to do van life meets in different places, the property would be a like multi-purpose property, in my opinion.
Yeah, you mentioned retreats.
Yeah, so I'm a qualified yoga instructor, and basically this is another thing, like I'm very passionate about meditation and like looking after your body, your mind, your soul for your well-being in all different ways. And it's important for me to be able to host retreats, because this is the first time I was self-employed, is when I had my own yoga business for 2.5 years in Whitby, North Yorkshire. Like, that is for me my most sustainable job long term, because it's in nature, It's in the sun. Got my tiny home, my fix, tiny living, but also it's community and people and caring. So that for me is a big thing, is being able to care, support, be there, nurture, guide, love, all that good affirmations for people. So yeah, more about my retreats at some point in the podcast for sure. Is there anything else you would want to add on to your dream life?
Yeah, I will. I'm going to qualify the struggle, or the challenges. When I recognise this in myself. When I have an easy life, I start sweating the small stuff. And when your daily challenges are things like, where do you go to the toilet? Where do you get your water from? Am I getting enough solar? I find that very grounding. The normal day-to-day stuff has an element of challenge to it. And that's a great distractor.
Because he's a problem solver, everybody.
Yeah. It was on my CV. I'm a creative problem solver.
There you go. You see, you need broken down van lifers to come to you and be like, "Oh, what can I help you with?" It serves your soul.
I love that. And that's
I know.
Yeah, I
love that too.
Yeah.
He's a great friend.
Yeah. I get a kick out of helping people, and my line of work. I'm not an altruist. I help people seemingly without any kind of gain for me. Actually, I get a real kick out of it.
Yeah, so
It's
he's
good.
a
It's
selfish
good.
giver.
Yeah. I'll help anyone out. I'd drive the length of the country to help someone out.
Yeah. But it's like jokingly aside, say selfish giver, because that obviously you get a good kick out of it.
Yeah.
My sister does too, to be fair. Yeah, I feel like everybody could do with that kind of pick-me-upper in your life.
If I help someone out, it comes with just one condition, and that's that they pay it forward.
Help doesn't have to be monetary either,
No.
or with van life either. Like for me, my helping way is me doing something like this. Like voicing people that I really think deserve to be voiced.
Putting that positive energy out into the
Miss Kid
universe.
vibes.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful hour-ish.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I hope everybody's kind of found value in today's podcast. I know some topics are very deep and interesting, but if you really like today's podcast, please give this podcast a rating on Spotify, Apple Music. It's distributed literally everywhere. And if you do a rating, I will shout you out in the next podcast session, the nearest podcast to whenever that rating comes in. And I will send you a specific My Van Life Perspective podcast sticker.
Ooh.
Special design for the listeners only. And yeah, you can check out my YouTube community page. You'll see a lot of My Van Life Perspective podcasts, maybe questionnaires that can come up or topics of discussion if you wanted to ask a question. But don't wait for that to happen. You can also message me, DM me on Instagram, which is misskiff_, or you can email me at misskiffmedia@gmail.com, and it's MISSKIFF media@gmail.com. Also, check out my stories on misskiff_. There will also be upcoming notifications of different podcasts. Also, if you're listening from around the world, because I looked at my analytics and it was really cool. I've seen quite a few people around the world listen, so I'm happy.
International,
baby. Yeah, thank you very much, Mevi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Till the next one.